So if you're hoping for another good lesson from Jason this morning, I'm sorry, you're disappointed. Suck it up, deal with it, move on. That'll come next week, and I won't be preaching twice this month, so that's the good part about it for you. I always reserve the ability, or the chance if I get really bad in this sermon, then we'll just start singing. We'll do a lesson on singing, and because that's what I'm more comfortable with. But the lesson today is a question. Okay, it's a question to each one of us. It's really a question to me and myself. Again, I don't know how preachers do this on a weekly basis, because I always have to talk about something that's really important to me, and I guess that would mean that if you were a preacher, you'd be a real bad sinner, because you'd have to do something that's important to you all the time and talk about how bad you are. I don't know how I could do that, but the lesson today is a question to each one of us, primarily to me, about, are you satisfied? Are you satisfied with the life that God has given you? If you're not, why not? Why not? That's a real good question. We've been talking about in the Wednesday night class, reading Jesus talking to us about, how we're supposed to act and how we're supposed to be, how we're not supposed to worry about things of this life, how we're supposed to, not give care and concern to things that really don't matter. And in the class that I've been up in the high school class with the young men, we've been talking about in the book of Ecclesiastes a good bit about how a lot of the things that are here on this earth are just really of not that much value, right? But I tend to associate, and I don't think I'm an oddball. I may be an oddball on certain things, but I don't think I'm an oddball on this. We tend to put a lot of stock in our lives and what we do every day, how we work, or our occupation, or our standing in life, our living. Okay, what do you do for a living? That's a question we ask people. So what are you doing, with yourself, or what do you do for a living? When really what we do for our living, our life, shouldn't really be concerned with what our occupation is, right? If I ask, someone asks me, what do I do for a living? Well, what I do for a living, permanently living, should be what I do for God, right? Shouldn't have anything to do with my job, but that's where we derive a lot of our satisfaction in life, a lot of our fulfillment in life. And so the question is, are you filled? Are you satisfied with your life? Are you, if you're not, why not? What are you really working for, right? What are you really putting your effort in, and why aren't you satisfied? Why am I not satisfied, right? Going through the book of Ecclesiastes, it can be a little negative, really and truly, because everything that the preacher, we assume that to be Solomon, David's son, talks about throughout the book of Ecclesiastes. He comes to an idea, and he decides to work through that idea completely, whether it's soaking up life through friends, whether it's soaking up life through an occupation or building houses or having a vineyard or having, wives or whatever that is. He does it fully, right? Because he has the resources to. He completely, if he's going to have a vineyard, well, he's going to have the biggest and the best vineyard that ever was planted, right? And he's going to soak that up fully. And at the end of having that vineyard, that's the best vineyard that's ever been planted, that grows the best grapes and has the best wine, he says, well, it's just nothing. It's vanity, it's foolishness, it's worthless. Okay? And he expounds on that, and he talks about man's work, right? He talks about the life that men live, and men and women, we go and we work, and whether you're rich or you're poor, in the end you end up dead, right? You're going to die. Everybody's going to die. And after you're dead, 100 years from now, you know what people are going to think about you? Nothing. They're not going to think anything about you, okay? Even the most famous people that we have, if you ask everybody in this room, who's the most famous president? Probably people would say Abraham Lincoln or George Washington. Most certainly not Nixon or anybody like that. But, we historically know things about great things that they did in their life, but the little bitty mundane things and things that are probably the most important to God, the way that they acted towards their fellow man, we have no recollection of that. We have no recording of that. None of that's important. And 100 years from now, the stuff that I've done, nobody's going to care about, right? It's not going to matter, the things that we do here on this earth. And of course, the preacher there, he says it's all vanity. Whether you live or you die, it's all vanity. And the work that you do, it's futility, right? And so there's some points about our work, okay, in the book of Ecclesiastes that I'm just going to say Solomon because I don't want to keep calling him the preacher, okay? That Solomon says that what work is for, right? What he says is that the labor of our hands or the effort that we put forth is really just and should really just be to satisfy our needs, like our hunger, right? To put food in our belly, right? But, and that's really all it's good for. And he says that is what we should derive satisfaction out of our labor for. To fill ourselves up, and to get something good to eat, and to have a good day. And that's really the point of us going and having work, right? So you can look at work as it's a blessing or it's a curse, okay? And in most situations, I ask the teenage guys up there, what is work? And first thing he said is it's a curse. And I agree with that to a good point, okay? Because work is a curse, because in the garden in Genesis 3, when Adam and Eve sinned, what did God tell man about work? Okay? He was going to have to work the ground. Before that, he didn't have to do that, right? And all out of that ground, he is going to provide subsistence for himself, right? So in a large way, work is a curse. But even more than that, it's a curse that we make for ourselves, right? And that's my statement to you, because it is what we trouble ourselves with, right? So in I'm going to flip back and forth here, a couple different passages. In Luke chapter 12, where Jesus is talking about us worrying, right? Scott talked about this a week or two ago, about what we put our mind to be worried about are the things of this earth that really shouldn't be of that great concern to us, okay? In the book of Ecclesiastes in chapter 5, it describes, and Solomon describes the rich man here, okay, in chapter 5. And he says here in verse 10, "He who loves silver will not be satisfied with silver, nor he who loves abundance with increase. This also is vanity. When goods increase, they increase to those who eat them. So what profit have the owners except to see them with their eyes?" Okay? We've got so much. I've got so much. You've got so much. Every one of us has so much that we ought to ask ourselves, what in the world are we working for? You know, we need to ask ourselves, are we ever going to be satisfied with what we have here? Really? Does it fulfill us? Do the work of our hands, is it satisfying to us that we come home and we fill ourselves up and we eat and we're made happy by that? Or are we troubled by what tomorrow will bring, right? Are we worried about our house and is it in order? Is the superfluousness of our belongings strode all over, our house? And does that cause us frustration? Maybe we shouldn't have so much stuff. The point is that our work, my work, has burdened me, right? I don't know if it's a burden to you, but it's a burden because I'm not putting my time and effort to what's important, right? Because really and truly, the way that the book of Ecclesiastes describes our work is we're going to have it, right? There's not going to be an end to our work here on this earth, right? We're going to have to work to feed ourselves. We're going to have to continue to provide sustenance for ourselves. But do we have to let our work control us? That's the real question. Do we have to let it govern our thoughts and our cares? Or do we transcend it? Do we say, I'm going to enjoy my abilities. I'm going to enjoy my job. I'm going to allow it to be a blessing to me. And then I'm going to focus and put the rest of my time into things that really matter, right? Into things that are not for me, right? Are not for, getting me more stuff, getting me a bigger house or a nicer house or a paid-off house, right? Because if you die before your house is paid off, guess what? You're dead. And if the bank's still going to own it. It's not going to be that big a deal, right? The whole idea is that God doesn't want us to waste our time doing things that are unimportant, right? And if we have so much stuff that occupies so much of our time, we don't get to do the things that are really important, right? If I say, this is all on me, it's not on you, but you can put yourself in my position. If I say, well, I can't go to the work release. Work release is a real good thing. I can't go to the work release on Sunday afternoon because I've got to mow my grass and I've got to work on my car and I've got to go work on another house that I've got. And I just don't have time to do that stuff that's important. Well, who have I penalized? I penalized me, right? I penalized me with my junk, right? My junk that doesn't matter. And that's the whole point that Solomon's trying to get us to understand. In chapter 4 of Ecclesiastes, he says, I returned, I saw vanity under the sun. And this is verse 8. There is one alone without companion. He has neither son nor brother, and there is no end to all his labors, nor is his eye satisfied with riches. But he never asks, for whom do I toil and deprive myself of good? This is also vanity and a grave misfortune. It's a grave misfortune because this man that's out there working by himself, he doesn't have a companion, he doesn't have a brother, he doesn't have anybody to help him. But he's out there working himself to death, trying to keep up with the Joneses in our vernacular. For nothing. And he misses the boat. Okay? Okay? Because ultimately, if we just do that, what do we have? Right? What do we have? We might have stuff, and we might not. Right? One of the other things that the book of Ecclesiastes talks about is, you can work and work and work and build up a whole bunch of stuff, and then calamity can befall you, and all of a sudden you got nothing. Okay? So you might do real well for yourself and work and earn a lot of stuff here, and then all of a sudden you get sick and die. Or, you get hit by a car, and you're dead. Or you're in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. You can't even care for yourself, okay? You could have all this good stuff, and then boom, it's gone. But in the end, if all we have is here, we got nothing anyway. And that's the whole point that Solomon's trying to get us to understand. Him as the richest person in the world at his time, okay? He had everything. He had homes and palaces and riches. He had silver where it was like rocks, okay? He had so much money that silver was like rocks, okay? Now, if you got a silver and gold economy and your silver is like rocks, you got a lot of silver, right? If you got so much of it that, it's just laying around. You can't count it all. But even having all that stuff, he had no satisfaction in it. Why? Well, because he wasn't fulfilling what deep down in his heart he knew that he needed, right? In the 7th chapter of Ecclesiastes, in the 5th, it talks about hold on. I got too much writing in my Bible. No, it's actually in the 4th chapter. It talks about having companionship, okay? Talks about two being greater than one and having companionship. God knows that we need companionship. Why do you think he gave us this family that we have here today? Okay? Because ultimately, even if we have a bride or a groom, one day we're going to get old and they're going to die. And who's going to be left to be our family? If we didn't have kids, who's going to be family to folks that never get married? That's why God gives us each other, right? He gives us each other to take care of us, right? To care for one another. And He knows that we need that. right? He knows that the things that really endure are not the things of this world, right? What does God tell us about things that are going to endure? Those things are spiritual things, okay? His love's going to endure, right? His word's going to endure. His rewards are going to endure. The things that we have here are not enduring. You know, used to, stuff was made out of metal. It would rust. But now everything's made out of plastic, and it just breaks, okay? But the fact of the matter is the stuff that we have nowadays is not very worthwhile, right? It's not going to last forever. It's going to break down. It's going to return back to the dust of the ground. Even in the book of Ecclesiastes, that's what Solomon says is going to happen to us, right? We're essentially just like animals, except we've got a soul, right? We're going to live our lives, and one day we're going to die. We're going to get put into the ground. And our soul's going to go somewhere, right? It's going to go somewhere. That's the only thing that differentiates us from the animals that walk around on this earth, is that our soul gets to go somewhere. And that is really what matters. So, in the second chapter of Ecclesiastes, there's this little discourse that Solomon has, and he asks this question, okay? And so this is the question to me, and this is really the point of the lesson this morning, is this question, okay? And you need to ask yourself this question. I need to ask it, and that's why I'm talking about this today. You have to ask yourself, when I read this, are you the wicked one? Are you the blessed one? Okay? Which one are you? Okay? And so this is in Ecclesiastes 2, starting in verse 20. Okay? And it says, "Therefore, I turned my heart and despaired of all the labor in which I had toiled under the sun. For there's a man whose labor is with wisdom, knowledge, and skill, yet he must leave his heritage to a man who has not labored for it. This is vanity and a great evil. For what has a man for all his labor, and for the striving of his heart with which he has toiled under the sun? For all his days are sorrowful, and his work burdensome. Even in the night his heart takes no rest. This also is vanity. Nothing is better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that his soul should enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw was from the hand of God. For who can eat, or who can have enjoyment more than I? For God gives wisdom and knowledge and joy to a man who is good in his sight. But to the sinner he gives the work of gathering and collecting, that he may give to him who is good before God." Now, that's interesting to ponder, okay? The good man, okay, the blessed man from God, it says, God gives wisdom and knowledge and joy to a man who is good in his sight. But to the sinner he gives the work of gathering and collecting, that he may give to him who is good before God. So you have to ask yourself, if you're burdened with doing on this earth, are you the sinner? And I think the answer is yes. Okay? So if and that's the question to me. Do I worry and put my time into dealing with this stuff here? Okay? If I am, I'm that sinner that God's put the burden on. And if I'm not, I've really just changed my viewpoint. Okay? Because in essence, it's all about perspective, right? It's all about perspective. We all have to work, okay? We all have to labor because we all got to eat, okay? That's the whole point, is that we're all going to sit here and have to do work. Why? Well, part of it's a curse, okay? Because we couldn't be satisfied in the garden and do what God said, okay? So part of it's a curse, okay? But it's really more about perspective because everybody's got to work, okay? Everybody's got to do things. Even Solomon, and you can say to a degree, well, how much did Solomon really have to work, okay? And that could be a discussion for a later time because I don't know if I really believe all of that all of his labor, maybe it was his servant's labor, but in any event, maybe he was a brain worker, right? He was a thought worker. But in any event, he had trouble because of the things that he put his mind to. So if we realize, hey, we've got to do work, okay? And we realize it is what it is. We go and we do our work and we enjoy the fruit of our labor. And we don't concern ourselves with anything else about it. And we realize that God's going to take care of me. He has provided more than I will ever need and probably ever use, right? I've got a house, I've got a car, I've got a wife, I've got children, I've got parents, I've got a church family. There's nobody here that's going to starve to death. There's nobody here that's going to go without clothes. There's nobody here that's going to go without medical attention. It's not going to happen. Why are we worried about having stuff? Well, it's because you're a sinner. That's what Ecclesiastes says. You're a sinner. God's given you that stuff to be a confounding to you because you haven't put yourself in the right viewpoint that all that stuff is just stuff, and the stuff that really matters is doing good stuff for God. And if that light goes off in your head and you say, aha, all this stuff is just stuff. And when I'm dead, somebody else is going to get it. They may not have even earned it, right? That's one thing Solomon talks about. I'm going to work and work and work, and when I'm dead, somebody's going to get it, and he may not have earned it. That's very well could happen. But none of that's going to matter to you if you enjoy your labor and then you realize that God put you here on this earth to do His will, right? To do His work and to bless other people. Then you got time to go and to do important things, right? You've got time to serve other people and to take care of the needy and to take care of the widows and the orphans. What James describes as pure religion, right? You got time to, take care of your parents when they get old. You got time to teach your children about God, okay? You got time to do important things. And all that other stuff is just what it is. It's just work. It's how you get fed. It's how you put clothes on your back, but it's not important, right? It's just not important. So that's the lesson today. Perspective, right? We've all got to work. We've all got to put time into things. But we don't have to put our soul into it, right? Because if we put our soul into what's here on this earth, we'll lose it. We'll lose it. We don't want to do that. That's a bad thing to do, right? A real bad thing to have happen. So, that's the lesson today. I hope it was profitable for you to think about. Ponder that scripture in Ecclesiastes 2:26. Ponder that and see who you are. You know, are you the sinner that God uses work to confound? Or are you the blessed that God gives knowledge to? Okay? Because really, you're the same person. You just got to realize it. You got to have that light go off in your head. If you need anything this morning, this lesson really hadn't been to convince you of sin or teach you about salvation. But if you're here, you probably understand that Jesus is, you're the Son of God, and if you haven't, committed to Him, well, you need to. So if you need anything, come forward and we'll help you any way we can at this time.